Good morning, everybody. This is Walk the Dog with Riot Mort, and it is Tuesday, about 6 a.m. And yeah, hopefully you're having a great week. I know the patch is tomorrow. Patch notes come out later today, so everyone will get to see the full patch notes. It'll be interesting to see how it goes. No rundowns or anything like that. I know Froden's not doing one. He's at EWC. I haven't actually watched any EWC, so I have no idea how that event's going. So hopefully it's going well, I guess. I don't know. It's an interesting event. So, but yeah, otherwise, let's see. Yesterday, so have you guys ever seen that meme where there's an artist who's asked to make a piece of art and he makes it in 5 minutes, but he charges like $10,000 for it, and the person's like, why am I paying you $10,000 for 5 minutes of work? And the artist is like, well, you're not. You're paying for the years of experience and the wisdom I have to make this awesome thing in 5 minutes. And that's a whole debate or whatever. I feel like I've reached that point in my career, I guess, because the first thing I was asked to look at on TFT, I had done by lunch. Now granted, I'd been thinking about it for a while because I was asked to do it like a week and a half ago. So I was thinking about the answer and how I'd want to do it and how I'd present it and everything. So, I kind of went hard yesterday after the walk, and pumped it out in about 3 hours and had everyone look at it, and the document looks good. So I'll be sharing it with the team. Now, again, who knows when it'll get worked on, but yeah, I don't know. I pumped it out in like 12 hours. Now, the joke here, of course, being that like, well, what's your reward for finishing the work early and fast? More work. I was teasing Alex. I'm like, this means I get to take the rest of the week off, right? Right? And he's like, nope, you got other things we can do. So, yeah, the cool thing is the other things I'm doing are also pretty cool. I hear we have another set in 4 months. So, but definitely one of those moments where, I don't know, maybe I overexerted myself a little bit, but I was excited to be back. I got it done, and this document's done already. I don't know. It's a weird feeling. It's a weird feeling, like just being able to like snap your fingers and get stuff done. So I don't know, but I guess you do it long enough, this is what happens. Now, keep in mind, it's like the one thing I'm good at, right? Is like game design. Cool. Ask me to fix a car. I can't do that. That's what my dad does. So anyway, yeah. So shifting to another different thing. There's just lots of little things to do, but it was nice to play test again. Being able to play test was fun in Futureland. So yeah. Otherwise, yeah, I'm definitely reading a lot of the comments on set 15. It's definitely interesting behind the scenes. We're getting like how the set's doing compared to other sets and what the ramifications are and things like that. Game's doing very, very well in certain regions for sure, and not as good in other regions. And so it's interesting to see what the difference is. Is it just marketing spend? Is it thematic appeal? And this is one where I think a lot of like Redditors wouldn't really understand, is that, the balance seems to be like one of the least impactful factors in the first patch of the set, right? It's like the things that actually impact success are stuff you might not think about. So, yeah, I don't know. But yeah, otherwise it was do that document, a bunch of meetings, did an interview, and yeah. So another day, another batch of that. All right. Y'all have questions. Let's answer questions. All right. Sorry, there's a car coming, so I'm going to wait and gibber on a little bit for this before this car comes. Cars always speed through here a little quick, so. All right, there, car's gone. Okay. How do you feel about spell crit as a system? Would you put spell crit in TFT2? So this one's really interesting, and we actually talked about this internally a bit as well. And it really depends on what you define the purpose of a crit is. And it's so interesting because if you look at a game like Diablo 3, the way crit works in that game is you have a pretty low crit rate. Like, let's say, I think the baseline is either 5 or 10%. And like a really high crit build in that game can get it to like 40% or 45% if you have like amazing items. But the crit damage can get upwards of like 300% or 400%, right? So like crits are this like really, really big, like giant multiplier that feels like a massive impact to the game. Compare that to TFT, our crits are only, baseline 40% multiplier? And you can get your crit rate to 100% pretty easily. You know, if you're playing Executioner, you barely need one item. Or, you know, there's just the 3 item builds are pretty common, like the IE Hodge Stride Breaker, and like, that's 100% crit, right? So, our philosophy of what a critical strike is I think a lot. Crits are normally considered something that's pretty random, right? Like even in League of Legends, the crit rates are usually pretty low, you know? People used to run a 1% crit rune just to get that little boost of damage, and that was pretty RNG, but critical strikes in TFT are not that random, actually, which is so weird for a game that has this perception from players to be random. Now, spell crits are a little more interesting because the idea of an auto attack crit is pretty normalized, right? Like if you're playing like, I don't know, Caitlyn or something, or actually maybe Xayah is a better example, but it's like, you know, your auto attacks crit, and it's like generally expected that like 1 in 4, 1 in 3 are going to crit. Which one it is, not really that big a difference. But a spell crit, right? Like imagine if you're playing a Seraphine and you put a jeweled gauntlet on it, right? The difference between a crit and a non-crit can be, you know, 40% difference. And so the difference between your Seraphine doing 5,000 damage or 7,000 damage being sort of a coin flip is a pretty extreme outlier. So that's kind of the negative implications of it, but there is something just exciting, right? Of like big number, you know, but we're not really pushing the limits of that. Now, when this conversation came up internally, the reality was, I don't think we can get away with like the fantasy of giant crits, you know, like that's just not, like if your Seraphine does 5,000 damage without a crit, but then with a crit does 10,000 or even 12,000, like I don't think that's going to fly in a competitive game, you know? And that's kind of our limitation of being a PvP game, is that you can't really push the extremes too high. So it doesn't really hit that like super excitement bar. Now, here's where the nerdy part kicks in. The reality is that in order to have lots of variant output in our systems, lots of unique content, we need different stats to tap into. So having crit be something that your mages care about allows us to make stuff like Jeweled Lotus, or, you know, anytime you crit, something happens. So having that output to tie in content to is good. And it makes, I don't know, I like the system right now where there's like 3 stats you need: AD or AP, crit, and damage amp. Because it feels like if there was 4, it'd be too hard to hit all of them. But 3 feels like you get 1 from your trait and try to get the other 2 from items and augments. So overall, I mean, I'm kind of listing pros and cons of the spell crit system. Well, that was a tiny little chipmunk. I'm kind of just listing pros and cons of the system. But overall, would I ship it in TFT2? Yeah, I think I would. And the biggest reason why, I think, is especially for AD casters, but really in general, it's weird to have damage in your game that can crit and other damage that can't crit. That's the weird thing. Now, here's the $1 million question. Would I require it to have IEJG? Or would I just let spells crit by default? That's the $1 million question. Because, again, take a champion like Xayah, and right now it's very confusing if you need IE for Xayah's spell to crit. I don't think we do a great job of making that super clear. But if the rule was simply everything in the game can crit by default, that's a much more intuitive rule. You know? Now, obviously we'd have to come up with new outputs for IE and JG, but that doesn't seem hard. And it will inherently make early game a little more random because, again, going back to what we said about casters, 25% baseline chance to crit. Fights could be pretty swingy if you get that first crit. But, like I said, from a game rules perspective, way more intuitive. Way more intuitive, just say, everything can crit. Now, if I'm just brainstorming here, one thing you could, no, that doesn't solve. I was gonna say you could do a, like, normal crit and spell crit modifier in the stats panel, but then you're back to the same problem, right? Where it's like, does Xayah's thing count as a spell crit modifier? You know, that's confusing. So no, you just keep one crit modifier. So, I don't know. Again, gun to my head right now. If TFT2, that's actually probably what I would do though, is trying to make crit more intuitive. I would just say everything can crit by default and come up with a new output for IE and JG. So, that'd be my thought. Okay, there you go. That's enough about crit. All right, next question. How do you feel about the state of mobile TFT? So this is an interesting question. And I think the answer you get is going to depend on how much of a hardcore sweat you are. Because what I will say about the state of mobile TFT is, first off, I still think it's a technological miracle that you can play TFT on mobile with people on PC, and it works pretty well. That I think is incredible. Now, one of the big things is that if you look at TFT as a whole, a lot of people were like, 40-minute game, that can't be successful on mobile. Everything about mobile says you're supposed to be having 5 or 10-minute games, right? Right? Oh, wait, who's like the third biggest game in China right now? It's us. You know, turns out 40-minute games on mobile is okay. And FFGS kind of proves that. Now, does our mobile client look like it was made in 2016? Yeah. Yeah, do I wish it was a more modern client? For sure. But like, it's functional, it works. You can do all the things you need to do on it. Now, but here's where the question really stems from, is like, well, aren't you at a competitive disadvantage for playing on mobile? And the answer is somewhat. I will say, for example, I personally don't like playing on my phone because I find the screen too tiny, personally, to make like precise movements. But if I play on tablet, I'm actually like, this is totally fine. I have no real issues for it. Now, can I do a high APM roll down on tablet? No, not really. But short of trying to go for Challenger, you don't really need high APM. There's this thing that happens in gaming where it's like, because a challenger can do it, I assume I need to do it. And I was happy to see Weijin finally come out, by the way, and say that, trying to tailor your power up wasn't really worth it unless you're a challenger. Like, I was happy to see that. And it's like, oh, well, if Weijin says it, it's true. But if I say it, I'm just Mort. But, But this is another example of that, where it's like, I think, unless you're trying to push for 1,000 LP challenger, mobile is totally playable. And in fact, I would bet there are some young people right now who grew up on mobile more than PC who probably play better on mobile. So overall, I think the state is fine. And I think the people who really don't like it are the people who grew up on PC, the people who prefer a mouse and keyboard, the people who prefer doing other things. Now, again, I'm describing myself. Do I prefer PC? Yeah, because I grew up on PC. I played WoW and League for years. So of course I do. But man, the number of stories I hear from people that are like, yeah, TFT is my game I play while I sit on the couch and we watch, The Bachelor or whatever generic TV show that normal people like these days. Love Island or whatever. There's a lot of people that do that. Or TFT is their game they can sit in while they're playing in bed. So like, I'm super glad the mobile client exists. I think it is generally passable 90% of the way there. Do I wish it was more modern? Yeah, for sure. Like, I know one of the things that drives me nuts is that it feels like at least once a week I get somebody who's up my ass going, why can't I get 60 FPS on mobile? Which is like, I don't know the tech reasons, other than your phone will probably overheat, but, but apparently that bothers some people. So, I don't know. Do I hope we improve it someday? Yeah. When Gavin and the Wizards people came and played Magic, one of the things we did in between the Final Fantasy draft and the Chaos draft was we actually played 8-player TFT, and everyone was on a mobile device, except I think one person had a laptop. But everyone was on a mobile device, and we played TFT in my living room. And it was like, that is cool that you can do that, So, now, let's see, what other complaints have I heard? Oh, yeah, you can't chat, which, like, I don't know. I've never found myself in a situation where I need to chat. And in fact, one of the funny things I'll do is if someone starts talking to me on TFT and I'm in a bad mood, I just won't reply. And then later, if they call me out on it, I can be like, oh yeah, I was playing on mobile. Because sometimes I don't want to chat. And having that excuse is kind of nice. But, I've never really found mobile to need to chat. And the idea of like, in the middle of the game on this tiny screen, you're going to open up a keyboard and start chatting. I don't know, man. I don't know. So, yeah. So overall, my honest opinion of the mobile client right now is it's a B. Maybe B- if you really, really want chat and really, really want 60 FPS. But at the end of the day, you still get to play TFT on your phone. And that's sick. There aren't a lot of amazing games. Well, actually, I say that. This is my oldness kicking in. So I say there aren't a lot of amazing games you can play on your phone. Yes, there are. There's like the entire Genshin group. You can play Roblox on your phone. You can play Minecraft. Of course, there's good games to play on your phone, Mort. Quit being old. So never mind. There's lots of great games you can play on your phone. But we're one of them. And that's pretty cool. So, yeah, that's my honest opinion. All right. How would you approach redoing set 2 with modern TFT standards? So I like this question a lot, and I think the answer is we'd make a pretty good set if we were to do that, because a lot of what went wrong in set 2 was a lot of like some of our most fundamental learnings. So, for example, one of the biggest mistakes we still laugh at to this day is we had our first set with skins, and people needed to learn the champions. And we put in Zyra, the plant champion. Oh, is she the plant origin? No, she's fire. Okay, well, we've got a moon origin. Is Diana in that? Oh, no, she's fire. You know, we had so many like mismatches of expectations of like, wait, this champion's normally an ice champion, but they're a plant one in this set? What? Huh? Like, having Nico be plant was great. I forget the name of the plant origin, but you know, the one that makes clones of them. But instead, like, that was a good one. But like Diana and Zyra being fire was one of the silliest things we've ever done. You know? So we would probably have champions match their classes that made sense for the champions, which would make the set more intuitive as a whole. So that's a big win. We probably wouldn't ship things with like random ass targeting. You know, no more Azirs blowing up your backline because they randomly chose to put the soldier near your backline. Like, those are things we fixed. But like I said, there'd also be really cool positives, right? Like, to this day, I still think Lux was way ahead of her time. I think Lux is, you know, if I had to point at like Witty's best creation of all time, I think it's Lux. I think that Lux champ he made was amazing. Like, the whole concept of like 10 origins and which one you get, and then it shifts, like, that was such a cool concept. Way ahead of its time. Like, I feel like you could ship that as is today, and it'd be a good champ and a good concept. Maybe the spell would need to change, but even that's a maybe, because it is a 5 cost, and like, if you build it right, maybe it's fine. But I loved Lux. I think we'd probably change, you know, a few things, like Crystal would be pretty toxic nowadays. So we'd have to change that. And then I think the biggest thing is that the set mechanic, the elemental hexes, that would not live up to modern expectations, right? Like, elemental hexes at this point could be like a single item or a single augment. I mean, it probably is at some point. So the idea that that would be your set mechanic, So we would need to come up with something pretty new for the set mechanic. But yeah, otherwise, like I said, set 2, as much grief as I give it, and as low as I put it on our tier list, it's mostly because we had to solve those fundamental lessons. We had to learn those, and now that we have learned those, I feel like if someone put a gun to my head and said, make elements again, it'd actually end up pretty decent. But would it be an S tier set? No matter what we do there, I think the answer might be no. Because, like, look at it this way. If you told your random friend, hey, we're going to play TFT, and your choice is the anime set, which has all these anime references to things you love, the music set, which has, you know, this whole music system based on what you play, or the elements set, where you can be fire or water or shadow or whatever. Like, I'm pretty sure from a thematic appeal, elements is pretty far down there. It's like generic, slightly different Runeterra-ish fantasy. And I'm so excited to be fire this game. Like, not really that exciting. So from the like casual appeal, I think a set like that could never hit S tier. Now, the gameplay and mechanics wise, we could do a lot of good things. I wouldn't be worried about that. But it was like imagine, the way I look at thematic appeal is like, imagine you're making the cinematics for this element set. Well, what's going on? There's probably the dragons shooting fire and whatever, because that's probably the coolest thing you've got in elements is the dragons. And then Runeterra champions generically fighting. I don't know. So, which to me just kind of means probably not an S tier thematic appeal set. So, yeah, that'd be kind of the few changes I'd make. And then, of course, should assassins be in the set? No, certainly not 6 of them. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like if someone said you had to do it, we could make it work. We learned a lot of lessons from that set. Like I said, I feel like that set came at the wrong time, but taught us the right lessons. And we got a lot better because of that set. So, yeah. All right, I got time for one more. I can do this. Why is double up perceived as a for fun mode? Do you think we can ever change that? Players like 4v4? And could there ever be professional double up tournaments? So here's my spicy take. Double up isn't actually the problem. Double up is a fine mode. It exists. It's fine. Some people like it. Some people don't. It does have a bit of an identity crisis. Every change we make to that pisses off one side, right? Like if you are somebody who's competitive and wants to climb the ladder, for a while you hated how many 3-star forecasts were happening or how many manipulative things you could do to make high-end comps work. But then we fixed that, and now you have all the for fun players going, hey, but this is my mode where I could goof off, and you've taken that away from me. Literally yesterday I had a Riot employee message me and be like, hey, I just need to pass on this feedback that the double up cannon only being able to send 1 stars is like the least fun thing ever. It's like, yeah, I get it. I really do. So it definitely has a bit of an identity crisis and we need to pick one. But here's my hot take on the topic. How many games out there can you think of that are competitive games but successfully support more than one ladder? What I mean by that is like, you can probably look at any game and go, here's the main mode, right? In League, it's ranked. In Hearthstone, it's, ranked. But like most of the time, it's just ranked. But some of these games will have alternate modes, right? Do any of the games with alternate modes out there also have a successful rank ladder? My read is no. My read is that, and tell me in the comments if I'm wrong, if there's examples I should look at, but I have not seen a game successfully be able to hold 2 rank ladders. I think League kind of shows this, actually. If you look at the history of League, it's like whether it be Twisted Treeline, Dominion, or even Flex Queue, things like that, it's like everyone always looks at the alternate queues as not real. And so why would TFT double up be any different, right? Like if you are somebody whose main motivation for playing a video game is I want to be the best and prove I'm the best, you go to the main queue, right? If you're somebody whose motivation is I want to be the best, but I'm probably not the best, so I want an area that's a little easier, you go to the secondary queue. I think there's a lot of high-ranking double-up players who might be proud of their accomplishment, but also know inside that they're like, well, but that's because it's double-up, right? I wasn't able to do it in solo queue. Not everyone, to be clear, but a lot. And the same is true as like Twisted Treeline. It's like the Twisted Treeline rank 1 players, they found it fun, but there's a reason they weren't playing SR, So I think that's kind of the biggest challenge. And so when we're deciding what double up's purpose should be, it's like, well, do we already have ranked? Should we have ranked for people who have friends? Or should we have a mode for people who have friends that's a little more lighthearted? And so a lot of our decisions we made around that mode were like, it should actually be a bit of a for fun mode. Now, your question is, well, if you did that, then why did you remove sending 2 stars? And the answer is because, if anything, it's not really fun if every game ends the same way, right? If every single game is ending with a 3-star forecast, no matter how fun you think the mode is, that's not fun, right? The variety of TFT is exciting when every game is different and when a 3-star forecast is a rare thing that happens and you feel good about it, not a standard thing that's supposed to happen every game. Unless you're designing Chonk's Treasure, in which case you've made that choice. But double up, we didn't want to go that far. But double up is meant to be a little lighthearted, a little whatever. Now, does that mean we can't do competitive things around it? No. I mean, there was the double up event that they did, that Froden and everyone at Riot did. with all like the influencers and stuff. Like that was pretty cool, and everyone seemed to have fun with it. But will it ever be like core ranked levels of importance? No, probably not. Who knows? I mean, I could totally see double up spin-off events and things like that. So, but the other big thing, by the way, is imagine you're a player who's trying to get really good at something. The skills you need to be good at double up are slightly different than the skills you need to be good at ranked. You're already committing a lot of time to learning how to be good at ranked. Trying to learn a secondary thing is just something that's not going to be appealing when you could learn the thing that you're supposed to be learning the most, ranked, and focus on that more. So yeah, there you go. Double up is perceived as a for fun mode because, to be frank, it kind of is, because other games, not many games can support two primary ranked things, and it's just the reality of what it is. So yeah, I don't know. I enjoy double up when I play it, for sure. But if I really want to sweat, I'm going to go play ranked. So there you go. All right, we're at 31 minutes. I got through 4 questions today. Mission accomplished. I know the team, like you guys won't see it because when the patch notes come out, we'll already have it, but the team did do an A patch yesterday to get ready for the patch, which was mostly bug fixes and a couple like reverts. I think like Kobuko buff got pulled or something. So, but definitely check out the full patch notes when they come out. Those will probably be out in like 4 or 5 hours. So, and good luck. I hope it's a good patch. I hope everyone has fun with it. At some point I got to find time to play some games. Certainly not going to play today, but maybe tomorrow I'll try to start getting back into it, because I've only really been playing on stream, but I do need to get to Masters. Got to at least do that still. So, and then I'm going to go work on future stuff. The nice thing is, by the way, the future stuff I'm working on is not that far future. And in fact, one of the things I've been teasing for ages, we're almost there. We're almost there. So I'm excited. Paris Open's going to be sick. So, all right. That's going to do it for me. Until next time, take it easy.